Rev up your engines!
Well, Toyota just agreed to a class action suit to pay people about those electric fuel pumps. But of course, it's the usual baloney. Now, in November 2020, they recalled 2.7 million vehicles. They didn't do them all at first because they tried to hide it all, but then eventually they did 2.7 million for the fuel pumps not working right. And of course, as usual, since it's class action, Toyota didn't admit any wrong, but they agreed to pay an undisclosed sum. They can't even tell us to resolve the allegations. They are putting out $28.5 million to pay the actual people, you. On the other hand, all this other money, oh, it's undisclosed. Who knows how much the lawyers get on this stuff, you know? They didn't want to admit it now. They're still not admitting anything, right? They're not admitting a thing, but they're paying money. How the law works in this country is beyond me, you know? Now, if you do own one of these, they did extend the warranty for these Toyota fuel pumps for 15 years, 150,000 miles. Now, I find that rather amusing because I have Toyotas that have more mileage than that. They still have the original fuel pump on it. Some of them are pushing 30 years old, still with the original fuel pump. So they used to make them a lot better than they do these days, obviously. Now, Toyota doesn't make the pumps, Denso does, but Toyota owns a bunch of Denso, so they didn't admit to any wrongs. We didn't do anything wrong, but here's some money. And an undisclosed amount, too. That's what amazes me. They can't even tell the public what the money is. Everything's hidden away. What kind of ridiculous legal system we have? It should all be out in the open. They're selling cars to people, and we gave an undisclosed amount of money, and you get this little peanut money left over. I mean, if you consider, they recalled 2.7 million Lexuses and Toyotas, and it's 28.5 million that they're going to give to the people. That comes out to $10.50 per vehicle. That's not much money, so come on, let's get real, people. Here you go with Hertz again. A guy's pulled over with his kid in the car, gets handcuffed and arrested because he said he's driving a stolen car. And the guy says, look in the glove box. I just rented this thing 26 minutes ago. Finally, they looked at it and said, oh yeah, the guy did just rent it. And the police said to him, if I were you, I'd call Hertz, say, get another one. Don't drive it around because the rest of the police are going to chase after you too. What happened? Well, Hertz reports these things stolen. Obviously, they got it back, right? And they don't bother to report that they got it back, so it's still on the stolen list. This has been happening for a long time with Hertz. It's obvious, you know, the company is completely incompetent at what it does. Mr. Wright was with his 13-year-old daughter, and listen to what he says. I was being detained with my fingers locked behind my head, and police telling me to shut up. It was surreal. Now, granted, it was Thrifty that he rented it from, but Thrifty is owned by Hertz. It's the same company, you know. They can pass the buck. And, of course, when the reporters who found out about this contacted them, they refused to comment. They didn't comment back. They just want to pretend this stuff doesn't exist. And to top it all off, Mr. Wright said the police had their guns pulled on them. They thought it was a stolen car. They didn't know, you know, it was a criminal stolen. They're pointing a gun at the guy. There are so many bad things that could happen. Somebody could have been shot. Something horrible could have happened because these idiots at Hertz don't even take care of their own paperwork. This is what the police said to them. Do not drive the car out of this parking lot. Make Hertz come and pick it up. If you get out on the highway, it may not go well for you, said the policeman. It is surreal. I agree with the guy. They can't even clear their own paperwork out. I guess they're going to have to now, when they rent people cars, they're going to have to do a search to see if it was stolen before they rent it to you so that you're not going to get in trouble. I mean, it sounds like a really incompetent company to me. But, you know, the bigger they are, the deader they are from the neck up. And then, you know, they don't want to comment to anybody about it. They say, oh, this doesn't happen very often. Well, it's obviously happening all the time. When you see the things that happen, hey, a lot of stuff's going to be happening we don't even hear about. A lot of people don't report stuff. Who knows what else happens? But it's still happening. Hertz still is not the place that I would rent a car from. RT Blade Forces. Scotty, I got an '07 Toyota Avalon. There's a way to get Toyota to replace the dashboard. It's sticky, it's sweating and cracking. The owner didn't know about the recall, so it's expired. Toyota's not going to replace it now. Once those things are expired, they don't care anymore. They're not going to. Now, on the other hand, I had an '81 Toyota Corolla SR5 hatchback. Did the same thing. I was able to go online and buy a plastic dash cover. It was a molded cover. And you put it right over the old one. It was black, looked the same. And you just glued it in place, stuck it on, and it looked perfectly fine. If you can find a replacement dash like that, look line, do it. Because if you're going to change the factory one, it costs a fortune. But there's a lot of companies that make lots of different kinds. Some have carpeted. I think they look stupid, but I like the original one that's just plastic. Get a molded one that fits over it, glue it on. It looks fine. Mine was that way for years. Jeff 070 says, any thoughts on daily driving a good running 68 Ford F100? My grandson's friend, he bought it for $1 from his grandfather, and his grandfather bought it for like 50 bucks years before in the old field. One barrel carburetor. They can run forever. They're not race trucks, but hey, change the oil regularly, make sure the coolant's clean, and just drive it around. Those things were solid made. If they're not rusted out, if you live in an area where they don't rust out, hey, they can last a really long time. On the other hand, if the frame's all rotten and it's all cracked, then just drive it until something breaks and then junk it, because you don't want to fix a rotten frame on something like that. It's not worth the bother. Aiden says, that's the best Mercedes engine. Never hear you talk much about them. Just curious. If you want long-lasting Mercedes engines, the old 300 diesels were the longest lasting. They were a 3-liter, 5-cylinder diesel engine, and they could just run and run and run. Many of them went over 1 million miles. Now, they were kind of slow, so then later they made the turbo diesel, same vehicle, and they got a lot more acceleration. Those engines were insane. They are so strongly made, they can just run and run. And you know, Americans don't like diesels, but back in the 80s, that was their biggest sellers in the United States, the 300 diesels and the 300 turbo diesels. They sold more of those than any other cars because they could last so long. And there's a certain amount of people don't mind driving a diesel. They drove them and they'd run forever. Quadrajet says, Scotty, my AC was replaced in the 2010 HHRSS. Doesn't cool as good as the original one. How can I get it to work better? Sure, I got an OEM compressor? Well, here's the thing. Did you get new or rebuilt? One, if you got rebuilt, forget it and get a new one of any brand. Get a new one. I read an article this guy in Florida wrote who works on ACs all the time, and he said he tested out a bunch of rebuilt air conditioners. He said most of them worked anywhere from only half to 2/3 as strong as they're supposed to after they were rebuilt. And then they won't blow as cold. So you got to go new to begin with. Of course, OEM is best. But here's the other thing. If you just change the compressor, there's a lot of other crap that can go wrong. You got to change the dryer that dries with the desiccant bag. You got to change the expansion valve, or if your system has an orifice tube, the orifice tube. And a lot of guys today will change the condenser in the front because they're so small, you can't flush them out inside. The tubes are so small, and they won't work efficiently anymore. Just changing the compressor these days is like crapshoot. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. It might work, not blow as cold. You realize when they do finally wear out, often the old compressors will throw crap in the system. Then you got to replace the condenser and those other parts. Eagle Eye says, getting Akebono brake pads for my Toyota. Is there anything to look out for with rotors? Well, the brake pads, Akebonos are so good, you can use them with any rotors. But always use common sense. If you go to a discount auto parts store and they got rotors that are $16 a piece, and then they have ones that are $39, get the $39 one. They're better made. The really cheap ones are made in China. Sometimes they're too thin. Sometimes they warp real fast. I've seen people put Chinese rotors on, and the dang things will warp in 7,500 miles. You want to use the better rotors, not the cheapest ones. But the better ones are usually decent quality at all the places. Just don't buy the absolute rock bottom cheap ones because they do have a tendency of warping and wearing out faster. Strivestava says, Chevrolet versus Ford. Be kind of at the bottom of the barrel there. I wouldn't buy either. Ford has had so much quality control the last 5 years of things breaking all the time, and GM has been going downhill for decades. I personally wouldn't buy either. If you're talking a truck, I would definitely get an F-150 before I'd get a Silverado. The Silverados are crap. And the F-150s are better, but I mean, I'd get a Toyota Tundra or a Tacoma if I was going to get a pickup truck because they run circles around those things in terms of how long they last. Yeah, they're not as fast, but hey, pickup truck isn't a race car. It's a pickup truck used for work. You want something that's going to last forever. But if you did want to make a choice between Ford truck and Chevy truck, I would pick the Ford truck. Eli Russell, Scotty, my Nissan Frontier 04, 125,000 miles, overheats on idle. What are the first things you check out? Side note, do you think these trucks are decent? How long do they last? Yeah, they're decent trucks. You know, they're not as good as the Toyotas, but they're not terrible trucks. They're decent trucks. I got a video. How to fix an overheating car engine, Scotty. Watch that on YouTube. It'll give you everything you can do. You can do it yourself, test it out. If it only does it on idle, but it doesn't do it at higher speeds, first thing, check your fan. Your fan might not be sucking enough air. That's a very simple thing to fix. But watch everything. You could get thermostat. They don't cost much. Pressure test it. Make sure there's no leaks anywhere. That video, fixing an overheating car engine, Scotty, just type that on YouTube. It'll show you everything you can test yourself, and you'll find out what's wrong. Pray it's not a blowing head gasket. I showed how to test that in the video too. You can get a little test kit on Amazon for $35 and learn how to test them. It's very easy to do. Reality says, "G'day, Scotty. I recently picked up a 65 Clark forklift. It burns oil. The motor spits oil out the exhaust. Could it be a blown head gasket or piston rings? Cheers, mate." Well, howdy down under. I'm assuming you're Australia. Those old things are so easy to take apart. Pull the head. And if the head gasket's blown, you might just try replacing the head gasket. Easy job on that. But it's probably the piston rings too. You might as well put new piston rings on it, rebuild it, if you're going to go through the trouble of taking it apart. Those old things are pretty simple to work on. They're not like modern cars with all kinds of trick variable valve timing. They're simple and easy to work on. So yeah, I'd get a head gasket and a ring set, put it in, see what happens.
So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.